Hello and welcome to the Low Code Podcast. I'm Faraz from iTrack, Global OutSystems Recruitment Specialist. With this podcast, our aim is to increase awareness and appreciation of OutSystems and its impact and benefits to the market. And our early adoption is giving competitive edge to businesses worldwide. During our podcast, myself and my colleague, Sushil Chauhan, will be speaking to IT leaders and OutSystems MVPs on how OutSystems has transformed their businesses and careers. We also hope that by speaking to MVPs on their career journeys, we can inspire developers from all over the world to learn from others who have already been on the path. So let's go.
Hello, welcome to episode 2 of our Low Code podcast. Today, my guest is Bruno Costa. He's Executive VP of Infosistema, based in Portugal, I think, at the moment. Yes. So good morning, Bruno. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Very fine, thank you.
Nice to see you. How things at the moment with you guys in Portugal?
Well, we are entering a new lockdown, so like all across Europe, some restrictions still, but I think less than the rest of Europe. So if it goes like this, I'm happy. We can still go out. We can still have dinner with a small group of friends. Yeah. So, yeah. Good. We are living through it.
We're living through it. I mean, we've just started here in the UK for a month as well. So we're looking forward to having a normal Christmas, hopefully. So let's start the interview, Bruno, with a little bit about yourself. Interesting to just learn a little bit about your background and, you know, how you've come to where you are today. I mean, from what I've just read, I know you're a graduate you're an aeronautical engineering graduate from one of the top universities in Portugal, which was IST.
Yeah.
So maybe let's go from there and then talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I have this engineering background, and fortunately, I ended up in a company who I think from the top in terms of administration to the programmer, everybody's an engineer also. So I feel among friends. I have a master's in aerospace engineering. I started as a programmer in Java and Oracle, PLSQL, SQL Server, some database, and then for when in the 2000s going into the web environment. And I did something that is not nowadays very common, which is I'm inside the same company for 19 years.
Oh, okay.
So I've been at Infosistema. I started as a programmer there. I enjoyed in my master's. I enjoyed programming. It was one of the things that I, at the time, thought, "Oh, this is fun, building things in IT and building programs." And I started as that, and then I did that regular path, which is programming, senior programmer, consulting, team leader, project manager. Evolving into a more business, multiple projects, multiple teams, then more business related, creating new business and being aware of growth inside the company, and ended up now for the last year as VP of sales of Infosistema. So that's my current position.
Okay, great. And just tell us a little bit more about Infosistema. I know you're part of a bigger group, the Join Group, which is, I think you're in 9 countries. You've got 350 people involved in the business and so on. So,
and growing.
So, and you know, which sectors you're operating in at the moment?
Well, the group itself, Infosistema was actually the first company, so created in '96. I joined in 2001.
Yeah.
And the group itself, so started as an IT group, like many other companies do, and started to do a bit of everything. So they have a project in a certain industry, they will do it. They have in another, they will pick it up, different things. From the beginning and from the onset, very focused in the financial market, so banking and insurance.
Okay.
A few years ago, it branched into and split the company itself into different companies and created this joint group, so each company could have a specific focus.
I understand, yeah.
And in Infosistema, the focus ended up being nowadays in terms of our IP, product development. We always did a lot of R&D, and developing products and solutions. But now that's our developing IP and our own products. That's what we in Infosistema are doing.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute in terms of one of your style products, which is the data migration manager. We'll talk about that in a second. But just going back a little bit, I know you guys have been a OutSystems partner since 2004. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that
we
was a
are
different
one of the first.
You must be one of the first. I was saying, 'cause I mean, OutSystems has been around for a very long time, and you guys are one of the early people who went with them, and everyone's
betting.
So you started right at the beginning, and things have changed massively, especially in the last 3 years with the way OutSystems is grown. But what was it like back in 2004 when you guys were first working with?
Well, like I was saying, we are an engineering company, and low code predates OutSystems. In my college, we had low code, but OutSystems always had this vision of being something that, and Paul Rosado, I think, in the talks that I remember, it was a vision. Okay, we go enterprise level. We don't want to do like play apps or simple things, and we want to do something that is for any industry. So it's not an industry specific, like I use low code to build a controller in some sort of industry or something like that. No, this is like you can use it for everything. And in 2004, if you remember, I mean, that was after the dot-coms bubble burst.
Yeah,
so
I remember that well. Yeah.
So people were like, okay, so we have to do things that have meaning. It's not just going on the internet and going live, and that's great. No, things have to have a return. So, and even companies, when you're talking, and banks or other industries, they said, no, we want to go online, but we want to do it with some meaning, and we want to do it at enterprise level.
Right.
And so right from the onset, that was the target, and that was the picture that we had of applying OutSystems. And obviously, low code for engineering guys, it's not hard to understand, okay, this is a fast way, not only of doing MVPs, but nowadays you think, you look at that and you say, the whole structure of the platform allows you to have, I'm not going to say it's already there, but there have been some huge steps in that direction, which is citizen development. Which, non-programmers building stuff that 5 years ago it was impossible. You'd say, no, they cannot do that. Or if they would, you would say things like, oh, but that's not secure, that's not scalable, that has performance issues. Now you look at the at OutSystems currently, and in the past half a dozen years, and even a bit more, and you say, no, they are attacking all these vectors to guarantee that vision of you can deploy it and you can use it and be comfortable that it will be secure, that it will be scalable, that it will have performance. And so that kind of approach, I think it's something that will explode, and that's why they are growing as they are.
And I think they announced some of that at the Next Step conference they had recently with some of the new developments, like the Workstream Builder. They're coming on board now. So and I think those things will make things possibly even easier now. In terms of
they are now focusing on AI. They are focusing on how can they deploy, and again, with that, going back, like you were saying before, to that 2004 idea that we have to do something that makes sense. So they are not deploying AI because it's fun. They are deploying it with a specific target. So let's improve the developer's capability and speed. Let's allow the use of AI inside OutSystems, so people don't have to, and that's the target. And I think they are doing it very well, in thinking that you want to use deep learning, but you don't want to have all the work around that. So let's make it easier. And so just like in building canvas, in building screens, systems of engagement, mobile apps, they like to say, okay, you don't need to know Android or iOS, but you can deploy a native web app. Now you can do exactly the same thing with AI. You can build AI and not being in the full knowledge of all the bits and bytes that are below the platform. And so that's citizen development, that's the capability. And think that, and I think this COVID crisis is actually something that is speeding things up in the digital transformation world. But you can think that people say, okay, many jobs are in risk. Unfortunately, many people will suffer in these situations and what is happening right now. But this is speeding up the digital transformation of companies. So this is things, I've found clients that had plans to do things in 2 or 3 years, and they are doing it in 6 months. They've done it in 6 months right now. And this is only possible when you basically are able to deploy systems of engagement, to deploy IT in a fast and quick way. And this low code and OutSystems is basically providing that kind of landscape, or leading in that kind of landscape.
And I think, you know, from where we've come from 2004 to now, I mean, especially in the last 3 years, I think all the publicity we've seen with Gartner and where OutSystems are sitting on the right hand side, they're the leaders in the multi-experience area as well. So it's really kind of, we hadn't heard of OutSystems ourselves until about two years ago. And then we started saying,
we had an advantage. We had an advantage there because our headquarters is basically like 2 blocks away from OutSystems headquarters.
You guys are in Boston as well, aren't
Portugal.
You?
We are in Boston also. OutSystems moved there also. And actually they moved before us.
Oh, did they?
I'm talking in the 2004 headquarters they had here in Portugal.
So you were right near them at that time as well. So.
And we exactly. So we knew about it, and like I said, we are early adopters actually in Infosistema.
Good.
And so this was meeting made in heaven, like they usually say.
So in terms of what's happened recently, there's obviously been a lot of changes in terms of the technology and how you guys have been involved in it. I mean, one of the things I think from what I've read of the background of your company is how you're working with OutSystems in terms of their data. So in terms of how they're, moving around data between different environments and different platforms. And I think you guys have developed a specific tool, haven't you, called Data Migration Manager, DMM, for short. And so tell us a little bit about DMM. How did it come about? Why did it come about?
Okay, sure. Think about like 5 or 6 years ago, we were in now, like I was saying, we are product based, so we are focusing on that, and we don't do services anymore. But at that time, we were doing projects in OutSystems for different clients, and one of the things that we noticed is that out of the box, the platform itself didn't had this capability of copying data between instances. So you have situations where you want to, for example, you are in a production environment, you have your production environment, your quality environment, your development environment, and you say, I have half a dozen records in development that my development's created in this application, have another half a dozen that my Q&A team did, but then I have several thousand in my production, or millions in my production environment. And this is not something specific or a use case specific for OutSystems, but it's across any other technology, and everybody that programs knows this. It's good to program on top of a database and a volume of data that allows you to check if what you are doing functions. Okay. And so what we ended up doing was, many times we were doing these projects, but we were saying, okay, we want to do something good, we want to develop something with quality, and we need more data in our environment, both in development environment and in the testing environment. And so we were manually doing those data copies. And after 2 or 3 projects like that in 2015, so like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we said, this doesn't make sense. This is a need that exists. The platform itself, out of the box, is not providing this. So we already had this drive, and we always had this drive inside of, in terms of R&D and developing our own products and solutions. Some of them catch on, others not so much. But DMM did catch on. or data migration manager.
Yeah.
And so we created that solution as a product, and it's currently the only off-the-shelf product that you can go on the OutSystems Forge, which is their marketplace, and download it, install it, and run it. So very direct, very easy to deploy. And the main reason was this. So we had the need ourselves, and so we created the product to solve our need. And then we thought, well, if we have this, probably most other companies and most other developers and the OutSystems ecosystem will also have this kind of need. And then suddenly other use cases started popping up, other situations, corner cases that we had to solve, and we weren't thinking about them. So obviously the product life cycle, which is quite different than a project, because you are building something and then you have to support all those clients that have the product. And so it's not the same thing developing a product as it is to develop a project. But we already had this experience in developing products from other solutions that we had previously. And so it was just applying that knowledge in terms of the DMM itself.
Yeah. Another, I mean, from what I've seen of it as well, it's a pretty good solution. I mean, it's kind of does exactly what it says on the tin.
And actually, even in terms of performance, I think it was last year we had some people in Holland testing the solution and doing performance evaluations, and we got like top marks in that regard. So the fastest solution to copy data between instances. And currently there are lots of other use cases where you can use it, and we keep adding functionality. So it's not something that we've built and it's there. Like every month we have a new deployment with new stuff added in. For example, a couple of years ago, when in Europe the GDPR global data protection regulation come up, we even deployed the free feature. It's still free when you use DMM, which is basically the ability to encrypt or to scramble data in your database. Because when GDPR hit, lots of people had like production information in their development and quality environments. Because I mean, I'm a programmer, I'm programming, I look into another database, I copy that information into my database, but suddenly GDPR hits and companies were like, whoa, I have to take care of this, because this is can be real information in these other environments who are not production, and we don't want that for confidentiality issues. And so we, for example, we deploy this functionality where we can DMM automatically detects patterns. So it detects like an email pattern, an account number pattern, a phone number, a name. And what it does, it scrambles the information. So when the Q&A guy goes to do some tests on that record, he still sees like a name or an email, but it's no longer a real name or email because it's been scrambled around. And so it looks real, but it's not.
And you can anonymize as well, I think.
I can anonymize. I can. That came after doing the anonymization, doing the replacement. For example, we can replace data and say, okay, replace all account numbers by this number, or all emails by this email, or delete information and stuff like that.
So you've had some pretty good successes then in terms of your the use. I mean, use of the products. And is there any sort of particular examples that stick in your head about?
Some cases, some challenges.
I mean, because we're talking about sort of millions of tables and millions of dependencies and things like that, aren't we? So it's a pretty complex.
We have clients that, for example, I'm remembering one client that had like dozens of OutSystems instances. So that configuration was basically a challenge. I remember a bank had, I think, 300 or 400 gigabytes of data, and usually when you talk about size, you think, oh, it's like 400 gigabytes of data. That's a lot of information. That takes a lot of time to copy. It can not be that. Actually, you can have like 300 gigabytes of data, and that be much faster than like 5 or 10 gigabytes, because it's not so much. If you have, for example, blobs, so binary objects, and a table with gigabytes, but all of those are like files that you uploaded into your database. It can be huge, but very easy to migrate. And suddenly you can have like what they tell us, for example, a very small database, just a few tens of gigabytes of information, but suddenly there's like thousands of entities. I mean, fields connecting, circular references, and then suddenly you look into that. And I remember that was one of it was a couple of years ago, and we had to revamp all our whole motor or brain of DMM. So and now it would scale linearly with database complexity. So it wouldn't be quadratic or exponential in terms of scaling, but it would be a linear. So if it grows, it scales linearly because we. And I remember with that client that it was a challenge in terms of algorithmics to manage to do this scaling linearly, but we've had something that was like migrating, and it would take like I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 days, and we compressed that into less than an hour. With that challenge, that in terms of revamping the whole algorithmic part and how migration could be, and explain plan in terms of database and everything, how that could be improved in terms of performance. And that was a really good challenge that suddenly came up. And it was even better because it made us improve the product, like in a way that was, I mean, after that, it was completely different in terms of performance.
I suppose it's the problems you're facing and the clients are directing how the product is developed as it goes forward. So
yeah, completely. Nowadays, even our product backlog, everything that is on the product backlog is basically I would say community driven. Obviously we decide what we want to put in there, but our product manager, he basically we do DMM is nowadays being sold through partners. So it's OutSystems consulting companies, OutSystems partners that reach out to us. They build a partnership with us, and they say, we want to distribute your product also in the different use cases that they have. And so it's them when they come to us and say, look, I have this particular situation, it would be nice if you would also take care of that. And we add that to the product backlog, to the pipeline, and obviously we evaluate it if it's depending on the situation, but we basically focus on what the community itself is saying that they need, the OutSystems community, and try to evolve in that way. It's what makes sense. I mean,
sure. The roadmap is driven by the customers and the developers.
Exactly.
As well. So good. Okay. So so going back to the sort of some of the projects that you've done, and just taking a slightly broader view, how do you think low code in general has affected kind of how companies work, how developers, the developer environment, in terms of, the typical digital transformation a few years ago may have been something that took 2-3 years, very expensive. So in your experience, in terms of things you've done, how's the landscape changed in terms of companies that have adopted low code and OutSystems?
Yeah, I think the main, I wouldn't say price, because I mean, everything has a cost, even excellence, and especially excellence. I would say speed. And you notice this when we are talking about low code, is that, and now in the current pandemic, is your ability to deploy something very fast. And if you remember 6 years ago, everybody was talking about omni-channel, mainly in banking and finances, which usually in IT, they try to innovate quite a lot. not thinking of the big ones like Google and Facebook and that, but in banking industry is one of those that is usually putting a lot of money in IT and getting clients and being fast to resolve the client needs. And the difference that you see is that they are able to respond much faster to changes. You see things with much bigger complexity being deployed in what they were saying that they needed to do 6 years ago, and now platforms like low code allow them to do that out of the box, which is the omni-channel. Which is you have a client and you have a person that you are buying something on your mobile phone on your way home, and then you get on your way to work. You get to work, you have a laptop or you have a desktop PC. Some still do, and basically you continue that operation there. And if you pass that into another one that I may use, complete that on a tablet, and I'm thinking in a few years you'll be looking at stuff in your fridge probably. But before that we get there, for example, finishing up transactions, for example, in voice commands like in Alexa or Cortana. So having this IoT, which nowadays when you buy a new house, you see everything connected. And it's not just the connection of having like network cables spread around your house. It's connected in terms of, okay, my TV is a smart TV right now. So if I want to cast my phone, what I'm seeing on the phone, into the TV, I do that. When I have friends in my house, I may have a stereo, but I may just pick up my phone and Google like some YouTube videos or something like that, and post them on the TV, and people are listening to background music and some videos passing there. So this interconnectivity and this capability of quickly answering consumer needs across any industry, because when we, as persons, when we have this ease in one aspect of our lives, we will be starting to expect that in all the others. So if your bank allows you to open an account, buy something in your mobile phone, then when you go shopping, we will also want that. If I'm going into an application to order something from the UK or from China or from the US, or doing a Kickstarter, whatever, I'm expecting things to be easy and reach out to me, and I'm in my sofa and things come to me, and not me having to go outside and do it in the old way.
So I think, you're right, actually. So the customer experience is the critical factor in terms of gaining competitive edge, I think, for
and
companies.
Low code, what has brought is that in the past you had, I mean, you still do and use them and each more, but in a different way. Your UX, your UI, you had to do that and repeat that in every application, in every situation. You had to spend time doing that. For example, when you look at the platform of OutSystems now, you say, okay, I can do that, but I can also have like a dozen already pre-made stuff that will speed up. I can use them out of the box, and it's like, okay, it's already good, it's already validated. So for those of us that were programming 20 years ago, you remember doing like those forms that were like completely horrible. But now a non-programmer does wonderful things in terms of visual interface, user experience, because the platform itself already provides that kind of usability and ease of development. And you can very quickly deploy things like that are very beautiful and very user-friendly. And because the platform takes care of that for you, and you are not even a programmer, so perhaps you don't even know how that thing appears, but you are the one controlling and saying it should appear in this situation, it should be like this with this color. And so that's the ease of that OutSystems brought and low code brings to this digital transformation ecosystem and what we are going through. It allows and I mean, I'm coming back to the situation we are going through and to the issues that many people are probably facing. OutSystems is something, and low code is something easy to learn. It's logic. and there are many different teaching courses, even online, and OutSystems itself promotes this, so you can go online if you have a laptop. And I've seen people who have nothing connected to programming in their background, but they suddenly say, okay, I have this opportunity, and perhaps this is something that now, unfortunately, with what is happening in the world, there are many people in this situation. And I've had friends to which I told them, look, you can just, you have time on your hands. And even if just from a psychological point of view of feeling that you are building something, you are not at rest, so you are walking towards something. I think people would feel better when in this situation, and have more options if they would for themselves take advantage of things like what OutSystems is providing in terms of learning online. They provide on their platform as a service, so on their cloud, like demo environments where everybody can go register and get
your own
and try it out.
Yeah.
So I think I would suggest in terms of people who want to change into a new blooming industry,
Have a go.
Have a go, try it out. It's logic. So if you have a mind like ready to do things in terms of a logic pattern, you will be able to learn and deploy and do things you even wouldn't think it possible. You would say, oh, I'm like, I major in linguistics or something like that, and suddenly here I am building this wonderful site, building this app I'm seeing in my mobile phone or something like that. And you will be amazed with yourself and feel good with yourself in that.
I mean, I think you're right. I think it's one of the most programmers that we talk to, for example, a lot of them haven't even heard of low code or anything like that, even though these guys have been within the technology arena for decades, some of them are years, and they've never come across low code. So we always say to them when we speak to them, well, it's something you should consider and look at.
And if you are a programmer, you shouldn't be afraid of it, because I mean, just like in regular programming, you have your junior developers and your senior developers and your architects. It's the same thing with low code. So you can build wonderful things when you are a junior programmer. It eases that path. But there are obviously other levels at which, if you know C# in the case of OutSystems, you will be able to bring a lot more to a team, and actually you will be a very important resource inside that team, either due to plugins, either due to other things that are needed to be done in enterprise level applications. And so this is not something to be afraid of, but it's something to embrace as an evolution in a career path. Because, I mean, I know the pleasure it gives us, because I've programmed during many years, to build something with your hands, and you may think, okay, now this is not programming because I'm dragging boxes and stuff like that. But that's not the whole of it, because you knowing what's behind, you are not programming. Nobody is programming in assembly language right now. When I was in college, I did machine programming, so like bits and bytes, processor level programming. Nobody does that. We program and we learned to do the things on a, I would say, a higher level. So we program in C, we program in C#, object-oriented languages and things like that, like Java and so forth. So this is just another step. It doesn't take away from a programmer the knowledge and the improved capabilities that he brings to any team, because he knows assembly, he knows how an assembler works, for example. That's great. That will bring a lot to an OutSystems team, that kind of person.
So looking forward, Bruno, in terms of where you see things going, and maybe where you guys might be working as well more closely with low code and OutSystems, where do you see things going in the future, and especially as we come out of the pandemic, maybe next year? I mean, I can't personally see that we'll come out until after summer next year. So how do you think people would have changed, and how do you think things may move forward in terms of OutSystems and you guys' involvement with them?
Yeah, I think that I agree with you. Before summer next year, we'll still be uh, going around with these waves in terms of pandemic. Let's keep that under control as best as possible. I think that the main change will be, particularly in IT, related to remote working and people, companies having. This is something that, I mean, this is not something new, but there were still many managers that were not trusting in and never had the experience because of that, of working with remote teams. And so defining objectives and having a more objective approach to what is being developed. So I don't care if the person is working 4 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours. What I care is for this objective to be done on time with quality. And so I think that that will be the main change, because in our field, that's something very feasible in terms of producing software and developing code. Obviously, I don't think that we will see it. Uh, I think we'll see it as mainstream, but not exclusively. So obviously there is still, and we are noticing that I mean, we've been now with over 9 months experience in this kind of environment. And we do know, and you can see it online also, that there are handicaps and things that don't work so well remotely. For us, that we've been doing that for years, that's nothing new. But obviously, when you have a team with people right next to each other, you can talk to them and ask a question, get that right away. So developers have to have we have situations and teams that I've worked with and I've set up. Look, everybody is working with the headphones on, and there's like a chat, an open chat. And if you say something, I mean, you just unmute yourself and you say it, and people of your team, when you are working in Scrum, this works quite well. They will basically know you are talking. So I think people will increase this type of adoption of technology, so remote work starts working even better. There have been some, and I've seen some blogs and ideas around this, that obviously you have to gain some maturity in terms of career path, for example, where sometimes being present in person gives you some chances or some opportunities that when you are away you don't have that.
That's true. Yeah.
Specifically about OutSystems and our work with them, um, like I said before, I see our main product for OutSystems, which is DMM, Data Migration Manager. I see it growing into more use cases. For example, currently we have a beta version on the OutSystems Forge, which by the end of this month will be stable for BPT migration, so workflows, migrating also workflows, not only data, but OutSystems workflows. And I see it increasing for more use cases. So we already cover several different and specific use cases around the OutSystems and data management, but I see us increasing that as more people come to us. And I mean, we do have already quite large backlog to work with. So for the next year, I know that things will change, obviously, because this is dynamic. But I see us adding more stuff, like we added the data import from external sources, like we added security issues that some clients were asking for. We added use cases for data export into a BI and CRMs and data lakes and stuff like that. So I see us improving the product with added functionality, added support. And probably also having we've started this year, like I was saying, nowadays, and these past 6-7 months of the pandemic, I think almost all our sales of the product were made through partners. And so I see us increasing that channel, supporting that channel even more, and getting a bigger reach through that channel, so giving more to the OutSystems partners, so basically they can do more for their clients also.
And I think in terms of how people talk about low code in the future in terms of how things might change in the next. I think things will be slower than they were anticipated because of the pandemic, but maybe say in 5 years' time or something. Do you see a much bigger adoption generally of low code?
Actually, I think things will go faster due to the pandemic.
Really? Okay.
I think that obviously you'll have an economic retraction. Yeah. That will diminish the investment that is being made. But the thing is, opportunities will arise, and to catch those kind of opportunities, you'll have to be fast. You have to be able to get things done with a good quality. And so I see that more people will probably flock to low code from other areas in terms of programmers, in terms of even non-programmers trying to get their hands on the technology, on digital transformation, on gaining knowledge in terms of low code. And I see the pandemic increasing that. Like I was saying before, people are, when they want to change to something, they are on a sort of business that digital transformation is putting in peril, for example, for their current job, and they think, okay, I will have to go into computers. And that
diversification.
That idea will probably point them into low code and probably into OutSystems because it's the leader on the market. And so I see that increase in terms of expansion. Obviously, that in the short term, we are all facing difficult times because there's an economic retraction, and so people don't have companies are having to reinvent themselves. But even in that regard, for example, if you are building a startup and you want just to put a proof of concept out there, so like an MVP, a minimum volume product, just to check out if something works. You don't want to spend 2 months building something. And if you are building a startup in IT, you will probably do something on the web, you'll probably do something on mobile. And so you may just go into OutSystems and deploy a personal version and deploy it and see if there is traction, if people like it, whatever. So even in these changing times, I think speed is of the essence, or probably focusing more on that in these changing times will provoke that speed will be much more important than in the past.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. I hadn't really thought about it like that before. So yeah, great. Thanks, Bruno. It's been really interesting talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. We're hoping to catch up with you again, maybe in 6-9 months when we're a bit further down with things and see how things have progressed. But it's been great. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, I hope if you guys come to Portugal, in 6 months, you'll have a beautiful summer around here.
Well, I'm looking forward to a holiday in the Algarve.
Yeah, Algarve, but also the rest of Portugal. Costa Vicentina. Portugal is basically history and beaches. So you'll get the whole package, from the mountains to the beaches, but with beautiful weather. And so
I can only dream about that at the moment, but I'm definitely going to be booking to come over there. Maybe we can meet face to face.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay,
we could have a lunch on the beach and something like that, and get to know each other in person.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bruno. Have a great day. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Keep safe. Keep safe and healthy. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Low Code Podcast, hosted by iTrack, Global OutSystems Recruitment Specialist. Be sure to subscribe and see you next time.